Hello, everybody, and welcome to From the Mezzanine. From the Mezzanine is the Broadway podcast for the Broadway fans, where we talk about all things Broadway news, Broadway grosses, and let's be honest, all of the tea and gossip that happens week to week in the Broadway stratosphere. How is everybody doing? I am doing pretty freaking fantastic because it is my birthday. As I'm recording this, my birthday is tomorrow, which is a Monday, July 22nd. And currently, what I'm thinking is, since most shows, they are lights out on Mondays, there's one show I believe their lights out is on Tuesdays. So I think I can see Gatsby tomorrow because I'm pretty sure they have a show on Monday nights. And that just sounds like the perfect birthday show for me. I wonder why it is that they are still playing on Monday nights. It's super random. But I was looking at all these things. I was like, oh, Cat's the Jellicle Ball, which I still have not seen. That would be fun to go to. Nope, lights out on Monday. So anyways, maybe we will go see Gatsby for my birthday. That sounds like a great time. Yeah, I love that show. And that would be a great way to celebrate turning 26, y'all. 26. Woo! I just don't love the idea of being 1 year past my younger 20s. I am now in my older 20s. But nevertheless, a birthday is a birthday. Another loop around the sun. And it was a great year. 25 was a crazy good year. Last year for my birthday, I saw Shucked for the first time, and it was also new. We had just moved to New York City. It was so hot, and I was so excited because Reed, my fiance, who was not my fiance then, but he is now, that's one huge thing that happened in my 25th year. But yeah, he got us tickets to see Shucked. We got really great seats. This was before I had ever even rushed a show, so I had no idea. I didn't even know it was a thing, at all. I had no idea what Rush is. I learned everything about Rush, once I met Bryn, I feel like. So we bought really nice seats to Shucked, which I would never do now. I would be like, we're rushing it. For Gatsby tomorrow morning, I'll be in that Rush line. I will not even for my birthday be purchasing tickets. I love Rush. It's the only way to go for me, especially when you can get front row for $20 at Gatsby. Love it. Anyways, yes, those are my birthday plans for tomorrow. We have some other fun things that we are planning, but only Broadway adjacent things. Hopefully Gatsby. That's what I'm thinking. I think that'll be fun. Aside from all of the birthday fanfare and fun, my dear sister is still in town. If you are a patron, you probably already watched the Broadway vlog that we did. We saw Outsiders, Suffs, and Illinois, and that is all in the Broadway vlog. And we were just gallivanting about the theater district, seeing all of these shows, giving you our firsthand takes right as we exit the theater. And that Broadway vlog is up on the Patreon now for the Broadway Besties. If you want to join the Patreon, we would love to have you over there. It is $5.99 a month, and I do Broadway vlogs. I do an after chat, Meet Me at the Stage Door, which I will be recording promptly after this episode. And on the Meet Me at the Stage Door, just to give you a little taste, we have some segments we do over there. We have Broadway Boyfriend of the Week, which always changes week to week. Sometimes I'm really scratching my head, who in the world? I go through these phases of Broadway boyfriends, but I have to switch it up every week for the Broadway Besties on the Meet Me at the Stage Door. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, I did Jeremy Jordan last week. I did Jason Schmidt 3 weeks ago. All right, who's taking up space in my head? Who's living rent-free up there right now? And then I do what song I'm adding to my Broadway playlist that week. And that one is always pretty easy to pick from because I've always got new songs on the rotation. I'm trying to think of what. I can't say it on the podcast, of course. I have to reserve it for the Broadway Besties. But I'm trying to think of what albums I've been listening to. Okay, I thought of it. All right, just for the Broadway Besties. Meet me over there. Meet me at the Stage Door. It's all over there on the Patreon. You can find it in the show links below, or you can go to Patreon. It's also an app, and if you just type in From the Mezzanine Patreon, it'll bring you right to it. So, folks, with that, I've got some splaining to do because I saw this play, Oh Mary, this week. And oh boy, was it a hell of a time. I don't even know where to begin. It totally felt like a fever dream. It totally felt like a fever dream now that it's been about a week since I saw it. Wait, first of all, to kick it off, before I even talk about the show, I have to tell you all the celebrities that I saw there. So let me start at the very beginning. All the way to the beginning. So my sister rushed to the show. It was a Wednesday morning. Yes. And she got to the rush line, I think around 9:00, and she was 12th in line. And they only do Brian, the business analyst who does rush reports on TikTok. Shout out. He is a really helpful tool when you're rushing a show to kind of gauge, okay, he usually goes to the theaters around 30 minutes before they open the box office, and he gives you an idea of how many people are in line and what the ticket prices are for the rush and like what opportunities they have for rush or lottery. He said that Oh Mary only does exactly 20 tickets, rush tickets, every single show. So she was 12th in line, and I was like, dang. If everybody in front of you gets 2 tickets, we are not going to get them. Well, but I figured, okay, at least 1 or 2 people have to only be getting 1 ticket. And that's what happened. So we got tickets. We got rush tickets. We were in the box. And the box seats were really, really good. And plus it's a play. And so there's not any choreography. And so, well, no spoilers, but there's no big group choreography, which I feel like when you're so skewed left or right, you can really miss out on seeing the whole picture in those like choreography heavy shows like Outsiders. But once you've seen it a couple of times, you're like, okay, I'm good with the box. But Outsiders is definitely a piece that is so much better to be able to see the entire picture because you miss a lot by being in a box. But the box is one of the best rush seats, in my opinion. I don't even know if you can really classify the box at Outsiders as rush seats or if they're just like discounted partial view seats. So we secured our rush seats, and then after I get off of work, this is all going to be in the upcoming vlog, I met her at the theater, and as we were walking to get in our line, who did I see? But none other than Miss Cecily Strong of SNL and Schmigadoon fame. I know y'all love her from Schmigadoon. Right there in the line. She looked gorgeous. It's always wild to see these celebrities in real life because I feel like most of the time they don't look exactly like they do on TV. And when I saw her, I was just stunned by how beautiful she looked. And I was like, oh my God, Kaylee Cecily Strong. And we are big SNL fans. So that was crazy to see her. So totally crazy. And I wasn't surprised at all that an SNL cast member would be at Oh Mary. This seems right up all of their alleys just for like the comedic bits alone. And the writing and the fact that Cole Escola, who plays Mary, Todd Lincoln, the fact that they are like a comedic writer, they've probably worked with, I would imagine they've likely worked with like Cecily Strong and people of that demographic, of that group of comedians. I feel like it's all pretty tight knit. So anyways, we saw her and then we wandered into the theater and we were in a box and we had to be like escorted, like directly escorted by somebody. Somebody had to come and get us and bring us up to the box. It was kind of very serious. It was kind of funny. As our escort came to get us to bring us up to the box, he was also escorting none other than John Stamos, Uncle Jesse from Full House. Now that was crazy. That was one of like my favorite celebrity sightings. And guys, if you want to see celebrities, you got to see the plays on Broadway. I've seen celebrities at musicals, seeing Cynthia Erivo the other night at The Outsiders. You do see celebrities at musicals, but I just feel like the A-listers, they are at the plays on Broadway. They really are. Because that one time, whenever, I just have to bring it up, when I saw Appropriate and I was in the audience with Tina Fey and Seinfeld and Busy Phillips. That was before I ever even watched Girls 5 Eva. And so I liked Busy Phillips from Mean Girls at that moment. And I wish I would have already seen her sheer excellence and talent. And I love her so much in Girls 5 Eva. But at that point, I hadn't gone down that obsessive road just yet. I'm ready for the next season of Girls 5 Eva. I love that show. So yeah, saw John Stamos. He was totally incognito. He had like a hat on and some shades on, but he stood out like a sore thumb. He totally looked like a celebrity trying to be incognito because it's John Stamos and he's got the hair and he's tanned to the gods. He looked great too. Anyway, so since we were in the box, John Stamos was like directly below us. And so I, throughout the show, would just glance down and see if he was laughing and everything. And he was super engaged with the show. And he did some like lone laughs at certain points. This is like belly laughs for the entire show practically. And it's just funny because there would be some brief moments, but they're always like cracking jokes and doing funny things. And a couple brief moments where I would look down at John Stamos and he would just be like laughing out loud when like the audience wasn't laughing along with him. I don't know, maybe he has a higher perspective than us simple audience members. But yeah, that was so crazy cool. And I just can't believe that I saw John Stamos. I love that man. Anyways, let's talk about the show itself. It is purely Cole Escola's creation. And I have to admit, it was amazing. It was so funny. It was so different. And it was a piece of humor, a kind of humor that I'm really surprised is being embraced and appreciated as well as it is, because it is obscure humor. And people are calling it campy. And I feel like campy at a lot of times can just be an excuse for like, this is weird and off base and like not understandable. But it is totally understandable. But it's just, I wouldn't even, yes, okay, I would describe it a little bit as crude humor. But for the most part, it's just like obscure, wild humor that just, you're like, oh my gosh, are they really doing that? And it's so creative too. It's really like they play the long game with a lot of these things as well. And there are moments that shock you. This play takes a big twist. I'm really speaking vaguely because I know probably most of my listeners have not seen it yet. But let me just tell you about the plot, I guess. So it follows primarily Mary Todd Lincoln, who is played by the genius Cole Escola. And basically, if you'll watch interviews of Cole Escola talking about this show, they say that they actively tried to forget every viable piece of history that they had been taught about the Lincolns and Mary Todd and all of that. So the plot is so non-factual, and the best way to describe it is like obscure and obscene. Like, it is so wild. So Cole Escola has taken the character of Mary Todd Lincoln and made her this like terrible figure that is so dislikable and so, I'm searching for the words, because you do love her as an audience member because she's so funny, but she is a terrible person in the best ways, right? Okay, I think that did the trick. She's like, you hate her and she's awful, but you cannot help but be rooting for her and loving every second that she is on stage. So yeah, it was a wild ride. I could even tell you what to expect. You wouldn't know what to expect. So there are some like conflicts that are happening. So obviously Lincoln is president, and it takes place mainly during the Civil War and then into the assassination of Lincoln. That's kind of the trajectory of the show. So Lincoln will enter the room and he's freaking out about the war, but Mary Todd is like, she only cares about herself, and she doesn't even know that there's a war going on. Lincoln can't stand a second of her, just loathes her, and keeps trying to give her hobbies that will distract her from bothering Lincoln. And so she tries painting, she tries knitting, and then she tries acting, which is her love. And all she wants to do is get on the stage and do her cabaret medleys again. And oh my God, like just that alone is so hilarious. It's an ongoing joke of, she is a cabaret star. They hire an acting teacher. Not going to give away who this figure is because it's a big plot point. And then she works on her acting. And then, of course, it ends in the fateful night at the Booth Theater with about 1 billion twists and lots of laughs in between. It was so good. I definitely want to bring Reed, my fiance, to go and see it because he will love it. But I do not want to play the comparison game whatsoever because this stands alone and it is so good and it is so unique and different than any comedy I've ever seen on Broadway or any comedy I've seen anywhere, period. It's just such a unique brand of humor that I have not experienced. But if we're pinning shows against shows, and I didn't do this, the critics did it last week. They said, this is so much funnier than Gutenberg. Not IMO, all right? Not in my opinion. Gutenberg was perfectly my brand of humor, and Josh Gad and Andrew Rannells and their singing and the songs and the musical effect of it, that was so spot on my brand. This is more obscure, but still hilarious, still amazing. But if we're pinning shows against shows, which I would never do, but I'm only having to do it, I'm having to defend my BFF Gutenberg, okay? That was funnier to me. Okay, that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say because I don't want to step one more direction towards being a critic. That is not me. That is not I. I love every show. Not true. I love most shows and art should not be compared. Okay? All right. Anyways, sorry. I'm such a hypocrite. But this was so fun. And if you think you will enjoy it, you most certainly will. Cole Escola's performance, I think they're going to win the Tony. I would be very surprised, especially with the rave reviews that it got. I would be very surprised. But we are going to go through the upcoming shows of the season later on in the episode. And so we might see some plays. Like, this is a big year for plays. We have Robert Downey Jr. and McNeil. We have Othello that is supposed to be coming, but we don't have much news on it with Denzel Washington. So it's definitely a tough year. And this is coming so early in the season, as we all pretty well guess the Tonys prioritize shows that are still open. And as of right now, this is planned to close in September, I think, maybe early October. And so I'm sure it'll get nominated for some things, just considering how well that it is doing. But I will be surprised. No, I mean, I won't be surprised. If the Tonys were tomorrow, it would get nominated for everything and Cole Escola would win, right? But the Tonys will prioritize shows that are still on. So it's not the most opportune time to open on Broadway right now because, I mean, this is already a limited run, but for shows that are wanting to last, you have to last at least a whole year pretty much to make it to Tony season. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say what it'll get for Tonys. But as far as acting performances, Cole Escola is definitely the star, but I also really loved James Scully, who plays in the playbill, the entire cast. Abe Lincoln is not in this cast. It is Mary Todd Lincoln's husband. And then so the other outstander for me, James Scully, he plays Mary's teacher. So you don't even really know by looking at the playbill who he really is in history, which historical figure he is. It just is like Mary's teacher, Mary's chaperone, Mary's maid, that kind of thing, which is just genius. And then, okay, we also have to talk about throughout the Lyceum Theater, they have all of these framed portraits that look like they are an old dated portrait. You know, in theaters, they have all of these pictures of like past shows from, 1960, a picture of the cast. And then it says a little message at the bottom. The cast of A Chorus Line performed here in 1962. Was in the cast, like that, right? All of these very old, fun picture frames that are just reminiscent of older days in the theater. Well, in this theater, it looks like that. It looks like that's what's on the walls. However, every picture is just a photo of Cole Escola in some random old dated costume. And then at the bottom, it has this hilarious message. Let me read one. Hold on. Give me 1 second and I will pull up one of these pictures. Okay. So this one says Doubt 2014, and it's a picture of Cole Escola with like a magnifying glass in a full nun costume. And it says, the cast and crew of this show had it out for me on day one. Actors should be free to try things without judgment. That's all I'll say. If you want more information, go to YouTube and search drunk actor roller skates leaky diaper. Quote, Cole Escola. So funny. my God. They are genius. And anyways, they had like busts of Cole Escola as Mary Todd Lincoln. When you go, I'm sure there's things that I missed, but you really need to take time to go through the theater and catch all of these little Easter eggs that are just strewn about. It's all throughout the theater. So like even in the restrooms, there were these picture frames with Cole Escola and a little message. So funny. I love that little special touch. It makes such an impression. Okay, so I think that's all I will say about Oh Mary. I'll give you the nitty gritty about the show and the meet me at the stage door on the Patreon following this episode, but freaking loved it. It was amazing. And I've just loved the trend that I, for one, have been taking lately of seeing these shows that are so different. Like Illinois. That one was so refreshing, so different. This, just the same, so different. It's nice to see shows. Like, I love my musicals until the day I die, okay? I love that. I love the character development. I love the big Broadway belts. That is my thing. That is my niche. But it is nice to see something that is so different from that. And it just shakes it up on Broadway a little bit. I love it. Okay, folks, let's get on into our Broadway grosses. So this is for the week ending on July 14th. Is that right? That feels like that was so long ago. Sure enough. Okay, I guess that was last week. So number one, everyone, we have, say it with me now, The Lion King. It was Merrily We Roll Along for a couple glorious weeks there, but it has since closed. So we have our number one back on top, which is Lion King. 2 is Wicked. Hamilton is 3. Those are our strong and we can always count on those shows to be our top 3. So Lion King, Wicked, Hamilton. 4, you guys. Number 4 is Hell's Kitchen. Oh my God. That is remarkable. 5 is Cabaret. 6 is Aladdin. And 7 is Outsiders. OMG. I have chills. I legitimately have chills. Outsiders is 6. They are so close to being in the top 5. Like I say every week, this is just an indication that the ticket prices are going up and up and up. And I know all my outsider girlies out there are really sad about that. I know, it hurts. It's hard. It's not what we want, but we do want this show to be successful because that means it's going to run a lot longer. And the fact that they are number 6, I am so happy for them. Yay, Outsiders. Also, congratulations to Hell's Kitchen for being 4. This is like really surprising, guys, because we always have our like tried and true top 3, right? That are our longest running shows that are in huge theaters that are just raking in the cash. But the fact that these new musicals have finally broken through the top 10 and in such a big way is really good for new theater, I feel. Because you don't want Broadway to become monotonous. I don't. I want shows to work up the ranks and continue to be successful. I don't like that some of these shows are running indefinitely for decades on end, right? And like shows like Wicked, you know, I'm biased, a hypocrite once again, like I never want Wicked to go, but it is so important that we bring new shows to Broadway because who wants to see the same shows every single time? It's great to see different shows. That's what you aim for, right? You aim to be the long running show that can run for decades and just bring in so many patrons and with that bring in so much money. And that's the goal, I feel. But it can be hard when there's these shows that are taking up so much space on Broadway. It can be hard to find your window of opportunity and find an audience. And that is what a lot of these shows are working for. You have to find your audience. And if you don't, you will close. That's what Shayna Taub said at the stage door of Stuffs. She said, we're just trying to find our audience. And I think Stuffs has found an audience, but not in as big of a way, clearly, as Hell's Kitchen and The Outsiders. So I'm just really happy for The Outsiders. They do have the highest percent capacity, I think, of any show in the grosses. Yep. Highest capacity overall. They have 102.21% capacity. To give you an idea, Hell's Kitchen has 100.43% capacity. Cabaret has 95% capacity. So it's doing really, really well. Every single seat, every standing room, like, what do you even call that? Because it's not a seat. Every standing room position is full. And I just love that. Some shows like Hamilton or Hell's Kitchen maybe could have a higher percent capacity if they had more standing room. And and things like that. But Outsiders, they are just primed to fill up that theater, and I love that. So with Outsiders at 6, MJ the Musical is 7, Harry Potter is 8, The Wiz is 9. So that is why these shows have bumped up so high. It's because The Wiz has bumped down some. I wonder if Wayne Brady is off already. I'm not so sure, but that could be why it's bumped down so far. And then Gatsby is 10. Way to go to everybody doing so well. I am just so impressed. Moulin Rouge is another one that is bumped out now that, it was just Derek Klena and Courtney Rhodes Reed who were in Moulin Rouge. But let's go ahead and talk about it. At the time that this episode comes out on July 23rd, over at the Moulin Rouge, our dear Aaron Tveit and JoJo are back in the roles. And so I want Outsiders and Hell's Kitchen and Cabaret to do so well in the grosses, but don't get too comfortable, because I do think once they're in, Moulin Rouge will shoot back up and probably be around the number 5 area. That's going to be my prediction, okay? Number 5 for Moulin Rouge next week. Y'all let me know if I predicted correctly. Okay, so yes, I'm so excited for Aaron Tveit to come back to the Rouge. I don't have my tickets still, so I need to get on that. I definitely need to prioritize seeing it. Yay! It's how all things should be. Aaron Tveit is at the Rouge. Ricky Rojas is at the Rouge. I'll be excited to see the chemistry between Aaron and JoJo. I'm sure that they'll be fantastic. Because to quote Alex, friend of the pod, Aaron Tveit could have chemistry with a brick wall, and he could. So yay! I'm happy that all things are right again in the world. So let's get into our Broadway news, shall we, everybody? This week was really, really dry. I'm not going to lie. It was very dry in the Broadway news. And it's kind of like the calm before the storm. The summer season is just chugging along. We are about to have a lot of arrivals on Broadway come the fall, mainly. And right now, it's everybody's kind of just figuring out where their theaters are, who is going to be cast in their shows, what day they are going to arrive. And so that sort of calm before the storm is definitely reflected in the Broadway news. This week's news is all about where these shows are going and when they're coming, because we got a ton of those announcements. Hopefully next week we'll get some more casting news, like who is going to be in these shows. For the most part, we have most of the cast, but there's still some key members. Like in Redwoods, all we know is that Idina Menzel is cast in the show. We don't know about anybody else. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about Redwoods, because we got some really heartwarming news that just makes me feel like the planets are in alignment and all is right in the world, okay? Redwoods is going to be arriving at the Nederlander Theater, which of course is where Rent played. It is where basically the first rush and lottery system was created. It wasn't the first, but Rent had such fanfare that people were lining up nights before the show and trying to get those tickets. And for the sake of the patrons and the safety more so of the patrons, they did away with that rush system and moved to a lottery system where they would announce who won the tickets 2 hours before the show, because people were just camping out. It's a little reminiscent of what's going on at the Outsiders right now, with people just camping out. Somebody told me that they saw a woman line up at 9 p.m. for the Outsiders, which is, I just think that's unsafe. And honestly, I do think it's unnecessary. I think if you get there at 5 a.m., you'll be okay. But I know people are getting there at 3 and 4 a.m. But that's too far for me. That's unsafe at that point. We are still in a huge city. And I wouldn't want to be on the streets at 3 a.m., much less 9 p.m. and sleep out there. It's for 2 hours of pure enjoyment. It's not worth it in my opinion. However, but that is what was happening at Rent. And Rent had such a young following that it was a huge deal to secure those tickets. And they would sit at the front row in the Nederlander Theater. It wasn't I guess sometimes at Rush you get front row, but lottery typically you're pretty far back. But for the Rush seats at Rent, they would use the entire front row. That way, the young, rambunctious young adults would be sitting front row and hooping and hollering and creating that energy throughout the rest of the theater. And I just think that's so so beautiful that Idina is returning back to her home. She can't go to the Gershwin. Wicked is still playing. So her second home, let's say, over at the Nederlander. It's going to be a magical experience to get to see Idina back where it all began with Rent. I'm obsessed with that. They couldn't have picked a better place to arrive on Broadway. And that alone, like they really, I'm sure, are going to be playing off of, well, Idina is a star. She's the queen of Broadway. So beloved in the Broadway community. I'm certain this show is going to be a success with her at the helm of it. But I think it's wise for them to continue to play on our emotions in this way of, oh, I just want to see Idina back at the Nederlander. That's so magical. Like the energy is probably going to be just so, so good there. And her energy, I'm sure she's going to feel right at home over there at the Nederlander Theater. So that was a really big piece of Broadway news that we got this week that just warmed my heart so, so much, because these things are always intentional. And if you can and you have the luxury of like, you have your pick of the litter for theaters. So if you're not familiar, I've covered it a couple of times on the podcast before, but it's kind of bizarre how these theaters get picked. So basically, you go to multiple available theaters and you kind of can say, okay, I like this Schubert theater, I like Jujimisen, and they are kind of vying for your show if they really want your show. Like, I don't know, because I don't see like the money side of it all. And I don't know how well Redwoods did in its off-Broadway show over at La Jolla, but I'm sure that plays a huge part in it, right? So I don't know if either the producers were after this show or if the Redwoods team really had to work hard to find a house. But that's kind of how it works. If you're a really profitable show and it's looking like you like have a lot of investors and you have like a lot of ticket sales already, then the producers are going to be working hard and making like really good offers to the production to get the show to play in their house. And the box offices of that theater, they take a cut of each % of box office sales. So like the Nederlander Theater box office, I think, I don't know, I'm going to throw a number out there, maybe completely off base, but like 5% of all ticket sales. And so they want to get a show that is going to bring in a lot of money and fill every single seat. That way they get the most cut, like they get as much money as they possibly can. When a show is in a theater that is maybe 90% capacity, 80% capacity, they're going to not renew the contract with that show. And they're going to basically be like, your rent is up. We're going to replace you because we can bring in a new show that is going to bring us in more money. Because when you're not selling 20% of the seats, then that's taking a pretty big cut out of what the theater itself is making. It's a really interesting sort of behind the scenes look at the business side of theater, but that is how it is. And you want to be, like I was saying, you want to be strategic about what house your show goes into, because you don't want to go into a house that's way too big for you and you're not going to sell all of the seats. Otherwise, the producers, they're going to pick a show that can, and they're going to replace your show and you're going to have to close. It reminds me of like, I hate to bring it up in this way, but How to Dance in Ohio. So they weren't selling a whole lot of seats and they felt their story wasn't over. Same with Shucked. They weren't selling to 100% capacity and they didn't feel their story was over. So their contract was not renewed. And this is all my interpretation of it. I don't know exactly what is happening. I do know that both of these shows, they did, after they were basically evicted from their theater, let's say, they wanted to then move to a different theater, maybe a smaller theater that would better suit their audience size, and they would be able to be profitable there, because you don't want empty seats, because that's just, you're missing out on money. And these, big vampire theater owners, they want every seat filled. So with that, you want to be critical and logical and strategic in where you go for a number of reasons. But specifically for Redwoods, it makes a lot of sense that they would go into the Nederlander, because that alone, people are going to be like, oh, Idina's back on Broadway. Yay, that's great. And then if they're rent heads, they're going to get multiple tickets so that they can, relive the glory days of seeing Idina at the Nederlander. Once the marquee goes up, everybody's gonna be like, wow, Idina's back on the marquee. That is definitely going to create a lot of buzz. There's just these little things. If they would have gone, for example, another example, the O'Mary show, if that would have gone into the Booth Theater, because James Wilkes Booth, he's that could have been a strategic pick to give a little more shaping to the show and create a little more buzz, even if it's just an article, O'Mary is going into, the irony of O'Mary going into the Booth Theater, even if it's just an article like that, that still is creating good marketing and press for the show. So these things are all very strategic, and I just wanted to touch on that a little bit, but I'm super stoked that it is coming to the Nederlander for those reasons, and those reasons alone, that Idina is back at home. It's so beautiful. So guys, we can look forward to this show January 24th of 2025. It is arriving on Broadway. The official opening is February 13th. Putting it out into the ether right now. If you need a red carpet correspondent, look no further. I'm your girl. But tickets are already on sale if you are interested in buying your tickets for this show. I poked around on the ticketing website, and it looked like tickets range from around $79 to upwards of $300. Now, we all know that can either go up or go down depending on critical reviews, but $79 for a ticket, pretty standard. These ticket prices, I'm not super appalled by, at least, which I think we're going to have some pretty appalling ticket prices this year. With all the celebrities and A-listers that are going to be on Broadway, it's going to be crazy. So in terms of affordability of this show, it's about average, I would say. Also, I just wanted to cite, I saw this on their website because I don't know much about this show other than the song that they released on YouTube that I like. It's called Great Escape, I believe. Go listen to it if you're interested more in learning about Redwoods. But this show is going to have no intermission, and it's 2 hours long. So that's, kind of not typical for musicals, but I kind of love a shorter musical, I'm not gonna lie. As long as it doesn't feel long. A musical should not feel like, oh my God, we're singing another song, which I very rarely feel that way, but I have felt that way on Broadway before. So I'm a huge advocate for only having your show be as long as is necessary. Okay, our next piece of Broadway news, everyone, is super similar to our first piece. Like I was saying, this week was really just, where are these new theaters going? Just more news about the shows we already are expecting on Broadway this season. So we are talking about Maybe Happy Endings. They have actually had to push their opening date by about a month. So this was simply because apparently they have these projections in the show, and they weren't going to be able to have them show ready in time. So it's because of, I guess, this set piece that they just need more time to prepare, that they had to push their show out an entire month, which is really interesting to me. So now performances are slated to begin on October 16th, my mom's birthday, shout out, at the Belasco Theater, and the opening night is set for November 12th. The producer of the show said, quote, Maybe Happy Ending uses specially made video projections, which are a critically important part of its scenic design, and unfortunately, there's been a delay in production for these custom theatrical goods from the factory, which specializes in these models. Quote, he goes on to say, quote, that supply chain issue has caused the show's postponement by a few weeks so that we can ensure the show maintains its unique and technologically advanced rendering to tell this story and the world of helper bots Oliver and Claire, quote. So Oliver and Claire, those are obviously the lead helper bots, played by Darren Criss and Helen J. Shen. And so I feel like the fact that they are having to actually delay coming to Broadway because of these projections, they're going to be so freaking cool. And that's what I'm really excited about this show. It sounds so unique and so different with the fact that it's based around this futuristic world and these helper bots that fall in love. It's so different, and I feel like the set is just going to wow us, right? So that is really interesting too, that it would delay the show by an entire month just because of the projections alone. So I've got high hopes for this set. And furthermore, in our Broadway arrival news of the week, we have the official opening night for Boop, the musical that is going to be arriving on Broadway following everybody's favorite cartoon character, Betty Boop. So it is going to be arriving at the Broadhurst Theater. Previews are going to begin on March 11th, 2025. Oh my God, that feels so far away, doesn't it? Like, oh, geez Louise. And the opening night is set for April 5th. So don't get too excited about this show just yet. We've got an awful lot of time before it arrives. Okay, guys, I want to go through the list of upcoming Broadway shows that we are anticipating this season. That way we all have our pulse on what is coming, when I need to come to Broadway, when you need to plan your trip, and what shows you're going to see on your trip. So to kick it off, we have Once Upon a Mattress that is arriving so soon at the end of this month. On July 31st is their first preview. Of course, this is starring, this cast sounds so good. I want to see this show. This is definitely one that I will not let pass me by. So we have Sutton Foster at the helm of it, and we have Michael Urie, who y'all just know that I love. We have Brooks Eschmanskas, Daniel Breaker, Will Chase, Nikki Renee Daniels, David Patrick Kelly, and Anna Gastier. If these names are not sounding familiar, look up photos of them. Go over to Playbill's website. They posted it. And I promise you will know a handful of people in this cast of Once Upon a Mattress. This is going to be playing at the Hudson Theater. So literally they moved Merrily out so quick, and they're moving Once Upon a Mattress in right, like quick turnaround over there at the Hudson, which is good for business like we were talking about. But yeah, their opening night is August 12th. We have The Roommate, which is going to be a huge Broadway hit. It is arriving at the Booth Theater. It is taking the place of Kimberly Akimbo, of course, which last played at the Booth. And it is going to be opening on September 12th. And as I'm sure my gorgeous listeners know, this is a show that is taking Patti LuPone out of retirement. She is starring in it alongside Mia Farrow. I'm excited about this. I've actually never seen Patti LuPone, and so I'm excited to get to see her in action. We have McNeil arriving at the Vivian Beaumont Theater. That's the one at Lincoln Center, I believe. And that is going to have its opening night on September 30th, and that is starring Robert Downey Jr. Is this a one-man show? Because they only are citing him in the cast, but we might be waiting for more cast announcements. Okay, we have a show called The Hills of California. I haven't heard of this. This is coming from the West End. It was just running over there. It is opening on September 29th. It'll be playing at the Broadhurst Theater. I'm going to have to look up the people in this cast because I don't recognize anybody. I haven't heard of this at all, but it's arriving in September. Oh, it's a play. Okay, maybe that's why I haven't heard of it very much. We have Our Town. I'm really excited about this play. I think this is going to be a big hit in the play category this year, mainly because of who is in the cast. So we have Jim Parsons, Zoe Deutsch, I love her, Katie Holmes, Billy Eugene Jones, Ephraim Skies. It is a really, really amazing cast, and I'm most excited for Zoe Deutsch. I have to admit, I love her. But this is a Kenny Leon directed play on Broadway. I mean, come on, it's Thornton Wilder's classic piece. It's the Great American Play. It's going to be a huge hit, and that is arriving on September 15th, but with an opening on October 10th. That's high on my list. I'm skipping over a few of these shows that I haven't heard of. Maybe once we get a little more news on them, we'll talk about them on the podcast. So this isn't every single show, but for the sake of the podcast, we're just hitting the big ones. Romeo and Juliet, of course, starring Rachel Zegler and Kit Connor, is arriving at the Circle in the Square Theater, and their opening night is October 24th. I've got to be honest, you guys, and maybe this is a hot take I should say for the Patreon, but we're going to say it. I am excited for this show, like to a degree, but this is one of those shows that I wouldn't be too sad if it passed me by. It just feels like it is so specifically for certain people, being that it's a play with music by Jack Antonoff. And I don't know who Kit Connor is. I never watched the show that they were in. I love Rachel Zegler, but I want to see her in a musical role. I just need to know if she sings or not. And if she doesn't sing, it might pass me by. I still support the show, would love to go, but I know the ticket prices are really high, and this might be a no from me, unfortunately. We have Sunset Boulevard, which is just one of the buzziest shows of the season. It is arriving at the St. James Theater on October 20th is their opening night. Of course, it is starring Nicole Scherzinger, and it's coming off of an really, really show-stopping run over at the West End. It's just so buzzy. Everybody's so excited about it. We've been talking about it on FTM for months and months. And I'm excited to see Nicole Scherzinger, and I'm excited to see Sunset Boulevard, because I read a lot about like the history of this show in the book Singular Sensation, which I can't recommend enough. It was a great read. And it was really interesting to learn how it was mounted on Broadway. So I'm pretty hyped for this show. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably like a 7 on the excitement scale. We have Maybe Happy Endings, like we just mentioned, that is arriving on October 16th. That's their first preview. And it'll be playing at the Belasco, the haunted Belasco Theater. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm an 8 on this one. I'm a little more excited. We have A Wonderful World arriving on November 11th. This is starring James Monroe Iglehart. We don't know anybody else from the cast, but this show is about the musical life of the legendary jazz musician Louis Armstrong. The musical premiered in Miami Beach in the winter of 2021, so quite a while ago, and then it just played a pre-Broadway run in New Orleans in the fall of 2023. That's perfect. New Orleans isn't it the Louis Armstrong airport there? He's a fixture of New Orleans. And so that's so cool. I didn't know that their pre-Broadway run was over in New Orleans. I love that. But I did talk to James Monroe Iglehart about this show. Let's enter the clip because it was at Drama Desk. And I think y'all will like to see it. So insert that clip here, Reed. Editor Reed. Thank you. Yay. I'm here with the one, the only, James Monroe Iglehart. How are you feeling tonight at the Drama Desk Awards?
I am feeling ecstatic to actually be here. This is so much fun. I get to be, I was a presenter tonight. So it was awesome. So it wasn't like the pressure was off. I just got to like sit back and like give awards to other people and sit back down.
Hey, that's easy, right? You had the night off practically.
Like, this is nice. I like this. This is fun.
Let's talk about your show that's coming up.
I am in a brand new show called A Wonderful World, the Louis Armstrong musical. And we open November 11th at the Studio 54, and I can't wait for everybody to see it. Most people, know Louis Armstrong as the trumpet player who smiles a lot, but he was so much deeper, and his life was so full, and he did some amazing things musically, and his life, most people think of him like, oh my God, what a smiling, nice guy. If you want drama, this is the show to see. Trust me, this is the show. We're about to give you some drama, but we're also about to give you some incredible music, and it's for all ages, from 8 to 80. For those kids who are music historians, this is the show for you. For those older people who remember Louis Armstrong, for those people who want that type of show that goes, oh, I want the intrigue, I want to know what really happened back then. This is the type of show for you.
That's so unexpected. I was like, okay, we're in for a good time, a happy, wonderful time. James is at the helm. I'm in, but I love a little drama.
Oh no, you will get the happy times, but I'm telling you, you also have to remember, I think what people forget is that Louis Armstrong was an African-American man from the 1930s to 1960s. If there wasn't a more dramatic time, I don't know what is. But besides now, that was the dramatic time. And so we have all of it, and I can't wait for you all to see it.
Oh, I cannot wait. What has been your favorite memory so far working on that show?
You know what? Learning about his personal life. Louis was married 4 times.
Oh,
yeah, and it was an interesting journey to each one and out of one to the last one that he stayed with for the next 28 years. And also just watching the things that he did musically that changed music that most people didn't realize that he changed. The way trumpet players are still playing the horn now because of what Louis did all those years ago. And that's what's really kind of cool. As a musician myself and as a fan of this genre, I was like, wow, I didn't know that. So I can't wait for you all to see it.
Oh, I'm so excited. And am I right in that the story is told through his wives?
A little bit of both. Yeah, it's like the wives and him. The wives help him tell his story. Yes.
Okay. Remarkable. I am so excited. I cannot wait to see it myself, and we will be rooting for you.
Thank you very much. I can't wait, and it was wonderful to be here tonight.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm a 9 for this show. I'm super hyped for it. I love James Monroe Iglehart. I think it's really interesting. I like these historical pieces that shine a light on people about, right? Like we all love and know Louis Armstrong, but I don't know anything about him personally. So I'm excited to learn more about his life, and it sounds like he had a lot of trials and tribulations, and I'm just eager to learn about this, because to me, I just think about the say skies of green, clouds of white, the bright blessed day. Like that song it's an American staple in the American songbook. And so I'm excited about this one. I don't know how well it will do. I think it'll do pretty well on Broadway, being that it's so recognizable. Louis Armstrong, hello. But I don't know. Time will tell with this one. I need to learn a little more about it. Tammy Faye, like y'all, this season is so stacked. It's crazy. Tammy Faye is coming to the Palace Theater, which is a huge theater, which I don't think is a good pick for Tammy Faye. Unfortunately, I don't think that this is It's just, they've already rubbed me the wrong way with the Andrew Rannells thing. I'm sorry, but it's true. Elton John has written the music, which I think is their biggest winning point for them, and that's what's going to bring people in. But it's about the televangelist, Tammy Faye, and her career and her life, and the Palace Theater is one of the biggest theaters on Broadway. It's brand new, newly renovated. It's beautiful. I don't know if this is the right fit for Tammy Faye. I feel like they should have gone into a smaller theater. We have Death Becomes Her. This just sounds so fun. I'm ready to see this show. It is arriving at the Lunt-Fontanne Theater. They already have the marquees up for November 21st is when they're opening. It is starring Megan Hilty, Jennifer Simard, and Michelle Williams. Oh, Lord have mercy. This is going to be huge. It's a dark comedy about eternal youth. These two women vying for, what everybody wants in the world. Gorgeous skin. As you grow old. I'm excited for that one. I'm probably like a 7 out of 10 for that one. Swept Away. I know a lot of people are super hyped for this. This is a musical about the survivors of an 1888 shipwreck off the coast of New Bedford, Massachusetts. The show previously played at the Berkeley Repertoire Theater and Washington, D.C.'s Arena Stage. It is arriving, did I already say that, at the Longacre? And the first preview is set for October 29th with an opening on November 19th. So this has music and lyrics by the Avett Brothers. I don't know anything further than that, honestly. We don't know the cast. We don't know. I don't know a lot about the plot myself, but it sounds intriguing. I don't know what music the Avett Brothers have made, so I don't even know the vibe of the show. But I know Broadway bestie Bryn is super stoked for this one. Okay, guys. To finish it off, let's just mention Gypsy. This is probably the buzziest show of the season. Wouldn't you guys agree? It is coming to the Majestic Theater. It is the first show to arrive at the Majestic after Phantom. So that's a pretty big deal in and of itself. The first preview is set for November 21st with an opening night on December 19th. That is going to be the most star-studded opening night. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. It is starring Audra McDonald. We don't know who else is going to be in it. There are rumors that Keke Palmer might be one of the daughters. Simply a rumor. I hope it's true. I love Keke Palmer. I think that would be an amazing fit, and I would love to see that woman on Broadway. Not sure if she's been on Broadway before, but she needs to be. She definitely needs to be. But yeah, Gypsy, buzzy. Everybody's hyped for that. So there's a slew of other show guys that have been announced for this season. We just don't know when and where, so I'm not reporting on it just yet. But it is a stacked season on Broadway. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of From the Mezzanine. I had so much fun sitting down with you guys this week. It was funny. I started out, I was like, there wasn't a lot of Broadway news, but look at that. We've already almost talked for an hour. Go and meet me at the stage door, all of my gorgeous Broadway besties, and we will get into the nitty gritty about Oh Mary. You'll find out who my Broadway boyfriends are and what song I am adding to my Broadway playlist this week. Leave me a rate and review wherever you are listening right now. I'm working so hard to get to 50 reviews on Spotify. I don't think we've hit it just yet, but we are so close. So wherever you are listening right now, please leave me a review. I got the sweetest review this last week. Just warmed my heart. I read all of them, and I'm so appreciative for all of your good reviews. They mean the world to me, and they do incredible things for this podcast that I love. And I hope you love. Share this episode with your Broadway-loving bestie because I'm sure they're going to enjoy it just as much as you do. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. You can find me by typing in From the Mezzanine. All of the links are in the show notes below. On TikTok, I am _Lindsay_Broadway. Yeah, thanks guys. Y'all are the best. And I will see you next Tuesday.